pretty much every country except Iran, Libya, Venezuela, Korea, North Korea. All these countries issue their own currencies. They don't borrow money from a central bank and then have to pay interest on it. And of course the World Bank has its henchmen, the World Trade Organization and the World Health Organization. And of course the World Health Organization has nothing to do with health, in fact quite the opposite. And the World Trade Organization has nothing at all to do with free markets. It's effectively about control. It's about domination. These are all the countries, marked in dark blue, that are fully signed up members of the World Trade Organization. And already you have a situation where the World Trade Organization can demand that all of its member countries follow its regulations and directives. Now, I'll give you just one example, because I could give you so many it would send you all to sleep. But one very, very significant example. The World Trade Organization has decreed that growth hormone contaminated beef is okay. Now, you know, when I lived in Texas, which really worked for me because it made me look small, because the people there are enormous. A big part of the diet is beef, and all the beef is effectively contaminated with growth hormone. And of course it doesn't stay within the beef. I mean, it's been passed, you know, in the meat. That's why the people there are enormous, they're obese. Now, in Europe, Mandelson, who's a very cute kitty, well, we'll talk a bit more about Mandelson a bit later, but he recognised that if he was to permit growth hormone contaminated beef to come into Europe, there would be rioting on the streets, because there are a sufficient number of people in Europe who understand the dangers of growth hormone contaminated beef. So he decreed that the EU would not import this product. Now, how many of you know that the EU pays a fine of 150 million euros a year because it refuses to import growth hormone contaminated beef? And that's not the only fine that the EU is paying. Now, so the EU does not even have its own self-determination, you know, because it's subjected to the global rule as established by the World Trade Organization. And that, of course, is kept from the masses. You know, the vast majority of people have no idea of how the relationship between the UN, which is as close as you get to global governance, its henchmen, the World Trade Organization, the World Health Organization, effectively establish policy on a global basis. Now, at the moment, without the Treaty of Lisbon being ratified, there at least is the opportunity for national governments to stand up and say, whoa, 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 whoa. Now, most of them don't. Most of them just roll over and play dead. You know, and in fact, the British government, when it comes to food and agricultural policy, has literally rolled over and played dead. And anybody who campaigns on these issues with the British government is just wasting their time, because the British government has decreed that it will do whatever it's told by the EU. So, you know, if you want to campaign on these issues from the UK, you have to campaign to Europe. Now, I've got to tell you that, I mean, tragically, of course, I learned today that Cathy Sinnott looks as though she may have lost a son. But you know, when she was MEP, she was extremely active in trying to change and influence European policy, particularly on food and agricultural issues and natural health issues. But the bottom line is, she was really batting up her head up against a brick wall, because the EU is effectively just following the directives of the World Trade Organization and World Health Organization. Now, I mentioned these yesterday, but I put a couple of photographs in today just to show you what they are. This is the Georgia Guidestones. Now, the Georgia Guidestones mysteriously appeared on a hilltop, just about 30 or so miles outside of Atlanta in the US. And this is a henge, and as you can see, it's not insignificant. It's granite. It's pretty damn big. But carved onto the Georgia Guidestones in 12 modern languages and 12 ancient languages are the goals and objectives of global governance. often referred to as the New World Order. Now, again, I want you to go and Google this for yourself. I mean, I would absolutely encourage you not to take anything I say at face value. You don't have to. I'm just sowing seeds here so that you can go and research it. But the Georgia Guidestones, and I'm not going to go through all of the statements. Oh, I know what's happened here. Problem. But the number one objective written on the Georgia Guidestones is to maintain the global population under 500 million. And it goes on, in balance with nature. In balance with nature. Now, the world population right now is, give or take, 7 billion people. 7 billion. And here they've got a statement, cast in tablets of stone, saying we need to reduce the population to effectively 1/14 of that. And they're looking always for creative ways. I mean, the report from Iron Mountain talks about the necessity for war, because it's the best way to create waste. And a consumerist, materialist society needs waste. I've just produced a DVD called The Truth Injection. It might just save your life. I don't have time to go into detail today, but the swine flu vaccine, in my opinion, is a part of this agenda. It won't take out 6.5 billion, but it might start the process. So it's a case of, educate yourself. Not everybody agrees with what's carved on the Georgia Guidestones. This is one of the more articulate pieces of graffiti. And as you can see, they were actually attributed to a particular family. And no surprise there. But go take a look for yourself. 12 modern languages, 12 ancient languages, 10 core objectives of the New World Order. And they've been there for nearly 30 years. Of course, the EU Treaty was given a resounding no by both the Dutch and the French in 2005. But, you voted for it in Ireland. Unfortunately, Declan Gandy has been absent for much of the campaign, but I've been hearing that he's coming back into the fray in the final run-up, so I'm sure that he can make a contribution. But you're the only country that's been given a second bite thanks to Raymond Crotty. Because otherwise they would have just run roughshod, just like has happened in France and the Netherlands. Here's a statement that if you're not aware of, you need to be aware of. Public opinion will be led to adopt, without knowing it, the proposals that we dare not present to them directly. All the earlier proposals will be in the new text, but will be hidden and disguised in some way. What was already difficult to understand will become utterly incomprehensible, but the substance has been retained. And that was a statement made by Valéry Giscard d'Estaing. Now, he is the architect, obviously. He has never hidden the fact that he is a federalist, and he's effectively considered to be the grandfather of the European Union. But here's the guy effectively, blatantly saying, hey guys, we're just going to do whatever it takes, and we will adopt a policy of deception if that's what it takes to achieve our ends. So describing the French government's use of utter deception to force public opinion to favour the Lisbon Treaty. And of course the Lisbon Treaty is not a standalone document per se, because it does actually encompass all of the previous treaties. So it's not as though it usurps them, it encompasses them. And there is a phenomenal amount of legislation that goes behind the Treaty of Lisbon. And when I should give you an insight as to how much legislation is behind the Treaty of Lisbon, I think you might be shocked. But you're not alone at the moment. I mean, Ireland actually does have some support here, because Lech Kaczynski in Poland has refused to sign the treaty, calling it pointless. And he says he's waiting for the Irish question to be resolved. So a no vote will effectively brace his